Previously on the basics of technical analysis. Technical analysis is used to forecast the future performance of any security based on the past performance of its price. Bollywood movie hero, the long-term investors came into the picture. So they realized that nothing has really changed in the last 2 days. So they bought a bit at the bottom, and because of this the price increased a bit and closed trading at ₹100. Hi all, welcome to this video. So in this video we are going to discuss about the 5 most important single candlestick patterns, which is a continuation of my previous video on what is a candlestick chart and why is it so important. So if you haven't watched it already, I highly recommend that you watch it first. Click on the I button and it will take you to that video, and after you complete that you can come back to this video and you can understand it better. So in this video we will first understand the 2 pillars of technical analysis, which is flexibility and risk. Then we will go through the 5 most important single candlestick patterns one by one with practical examples. We will understand the market sentiments behind those candlestick patterns, and finally I'll give you some pro tips that will help you make better trades. So the first pillar that we would be discussing about is flexibility. So going ahead, when we would be discussing about single candlestick patterns, we will observe that there would be minor variations between the textbook definition of patterns and what actually happens in the market. So flexibility means that if the variations are under limit or if they are negligible, then we should still consider those candlesticks as patterns. The second pillar of technical analysis, which is very important in terms of profitability, is risk. So depending upon the risk a person can take, there are 2 types of traders. Number 1, a trader who is a risk taker, and number 2, a trader who is risk averse. A risk taker is a person who initiates the trades as soon as the pattern is formed. Whereas on the other hand, a risk averse trader is a person who initiates the trade once he gets the confirmation for the trade. So he waits for the confirmation after the pattern is formed, only then he will initiate the trade. So before you start applying technical analysis for trading or investing, first identify if you are a risk taker or a risk averse person. And by the way, there is nothing wrong being a risk averse person or a trader. So in my opinion, you can try both the philosophies and then you can identify what is your trading style. So as the name suggests, single candlestick patterns consist of just one candle. So if you identify these patterns correctly, then they could be extremely profitable. Now, as for your knowledge, there are about 13 different single candlestick patterns, but in this video we will discuss about the 5 most common single candlestick patterns and understand the market sentiments behind those. A Marubozu is a candle which just has the real body. It has no upper shadows, it has no lower shadows. And that is why the name Marubozu comes from the word bold in Japanese. To understand this better, take a look at this image. So in a bullish Marubozu candle, the low is the same as the open and the high is same as the close. So you can see that there is no upper shadow and there is no lower shadow. And the reverse is applicable for bearish Marubozu candle. So does this mean that this always has to be true for a Marubozu pattern to be formed? The answer is no. So as we discussed previously, technical analysis is very much about being flexible. So looking at the greater picture, even if the candle has a small but negligible shadow, it should still be considered as a Marubozu candlestick. So in that terms we can say that the low should be approximately equal to the open and the high should be approximately equal to close for a bullish Marubozu candle, and the reverse, that is the high should be approximately equal to the open and the low should be approximately equal to the close for a bearish Marubozu candle to be formed. Now what is the market thinking or what is the market sentiment behind this? For a bullish Marubozu, the market sentiment is extremely positive. That is, people are ready to pay any price to buy that particular stock and there has been no selling pressure at all. So this gives an extremely bullish signal. Thus, exactly opposite is applicable for a bearish Marubozu candle. That is, there has been so much negativity on that particular stock that people are ready to sell it at any price, and there has been no buying interest at all. So it gives an extremely bearish signal. Now let us see a practical example of this pattern. This is the daily chart of KPIT Tech. Now look at the blue candle that I have highlighted. So is this a bullish Marubozu candle? The answer is yes. So I know there is a bit of a lower shadow, but it is very negligible when you compare it with the size of the body. So we can be flexible enough and just ignore it. Now if you are a risk taker, then you would go long as soon as the candle has formed. But if you are a risk averse trader, then you would wait for the third day. Because on the second day it was an upper circuit, so you might not be able to buy it then. So in this example, both the style of traders would have made some money. Now after a few days itself, a bearish Marubozu candle is formed. So this gives an opportunity to short the particular stock. For a risk taker, it would have been a flat trade, or he would have incurred a bit of loss if he would have waited for his stop loss to hit. But on the other hand, a risk averse trader might have completely avoided this trade. Why? Because if you see the third candle, there is a bit of a lower shadow there, right? So the lower shadow means that there was some sort of buying interest. So it is not a complete bearish signal. So he would have avoided the trade. So my pro tip for trading with Marubozu candles is avoid trading too long or too short bodied Marubozu candles. So why this? So when a Marubozu candle has a very short body, it gives a false impression of the trend. So it can happen that you get a false hope of bullishness or bearishness. So you can't predict it correctly. On the other hand, a Marubozu candle which is too long, it is difficult to put the stop loss. So it is very likely that you will incur very huge losses. So this is my pro tip. Now spinning tops and doji are two different candlestick patterns, but since they are very similar, we are going to discuss them together. So take a look at this. अभी आप अगर इनको गौर से देखोगे तो आपको इनके बीच में डिफरेंस पता चल गया होगा. But still, for simplicity, let's define the characteristics for each candlestick. So spinning tops के लिए number 1 जो characteristic उनका है वो ये है कि it has a small real body. And the second characteristic is that the upper and lower shadows are almost equal in length. Okay. For doji as well, the upper and lower shadows are almost equal, but the difference between these two candles is that the doji has no real body or it has a negligible real body. So अभी flexibility के बारे में बात करते हैं. So in case of spinning tops and dojis, it is okay if the upper and lower shadows are not exactly the same. So if they are of the comparable length as well, we can still consider it. Now what is the market sentiment behind them? So the equal length of the upper and lower shadows of doji and spinning top means that the bulls and bears have tried to take the prices higher and lower, but none of them were really successful in doing so. This is also confirmed by the fact that these two candles have a really small body. So this kind of candles signify a neutral sentiment which is neither bullish and nor bearish. Now what would be the market sentiment behind the doji candle? तो अभी अगर एक स्मॉल बॉडीड स्पिनिंग टॉप को देख के आपको ये समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कि मार्केट सेंटिमेंट क्या है, तो एक न्यूट्रल बॉडीड दोजी कैंडल को देख के आप क्या ही बता पाओगे. सो व्हेनेवर अ दोजी कैंडल occurs, it means that the market sentiment is extremely neutral. Let's see a practical example to understand this better. So again, checking a daily chart for KPIT Tech. So look at the top of the upper trend. Doji is formed, right, and it has been highlighted on the screen. So on the very next day, we can see that there is a spinning top that has been formed as well. Now during such days of indecisiveness, the risk takers enter the trade with just half the quantity they would have usually bought. So ये क्यों करते हैं वो लोग? ये इसलिए करते हैं ताकि उनके जो losses है वो बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं हो, और अगर प्राइसेस ऊपर की तरफ चले भी गए तो उन्होंने ऑलरेडी हाफ जो क्वांटिटी है वो एक सस्ते प्राइस पे खरीद कर रखी हुई है. So on the other hand, the risk averse trader would have waited for the confirmation, right? So you can see that on the very next day, a big red candle is formed. So he did not enter the candle since there is no confirmation of going long. So my pro tip for spinning tops and doji is that the color of the candles does not signify the sentiment behind those candles. So if a spinning top or doji is red or green, it would still signify a neutral sentiment. This is because it has a small real body. So hammer or Hindi mein hatoda. So let's see the characteristics of a candlesticks on your screen now. So the very first characteristics is that a hammer has a really small body. Okay. The second characteristic being there is little to no upper shadow. And the third and the most important one is the lower shadow should be at least twice the length of the real body. So what is the market sentiment behind a hammer? So a long lower shadow means that the bears tried to take the price lower, but the bulls fought hard and took the price back up. So a formation of a hammer is a highly bullish signal. Now similar to spinning tops and doji, the color of the candle doesn't matter in case of hammers. That is, in case the color is green or red, a hammer will always signify a bullish sentiment. But still, if the color of the candle is green, then nothing can be better than that, right? Let's understand this using a practical example. So this is the same chart that we discussed for Marubozu candle. Now look at both these highlighted candles. The first one doesn't have a real body but has a really long lower shadow. The second one has a small real body but it does have a small upper shadow too. So आपको क्या लगता है? क्या हमें इसको still एक hammer formation consider करना चाहिए? So remember flexibility. Now even though there is a small upper shadow, just look at the huge lower shadow. It is almost 5 times the real body and at least 3 times longer than the upper shadow and the real body combined. So sentimentally, this is still a bullish hammer. Now as per the risk appetite, a risk taker would take the trade as soon as the hammer is formed. But a risk averse trader would still wait for the next confirmation and only then initiate the trade. So what do you think a risk averse trader might have done? So for the first candle, he might have avoided the trade, but on the second candle, as soon as he got the confirmation, he would have gone long. So I have 2 pro tips when it comes to hammer candlestick patterns. So number 1 is that hammers are more effective when found at the bottom of a downtrend. So जब एक downtrend चल रहा है और समझ लीजिए नीचे एक hammer का formation होता है, it means कि trend reversal के chances बहुत ज़्यादा है. और जो second pro tip है वो ये है कि the longer is the lower shadow of the hammer, the more bullish is that particular pattern. So the last candlestick pattern that we are going to discuss in this video is shooting star. So a shooting star is also called as a inverted hammer. वो इसलिए क्योंकि आप अगर एक हैमर को उल्टा कर दोगे तो उसको शूटिंग स्टार बोलेंगे. अब ये कितना भी उल्टा पुल्टा पैटर्न क्यों ना हो, ये स्टिल हैमर जितना स्ट्रॉन्ग पैटर्न है. Now let's see the characteristics of a shooting star which is very similar to that of a hammer. So the very first one, it has a small real body. Second, it has little or no lower shadow. And the third and the most important one is that the upper shadow should be at least twice the length of the real body. Now what is the market sentiment behind the shooting star? So the formation of a long upper shadow means that the bulls tried to take the prices higher, but the bears fought hard and pulled the price way lower. So this means that this pattern is a highly bearish pattern. Now similar to hammer, the color of a shooting star does not matter. So if the color of the candle is green or red, it would still signify a bearish sentiment. To understand shooting stars better, let's see a practical example. So this is the same chart that we discussed for Doji. So I have highlighted the 2 shooting stars that you can see right on the chart. Now see the price action that occurred right after the formation of the shooting stars. So it's just flat, right? That is, there has been no uptrend or no downtrend after that. So in both the cases, a risk taker would have not made any money. But what about a risk averse trader? So in the first case, a hammer is formed just after the shooting star is formed. Hence, he will definitely stay away from this since there is no confirmation. So what about the second one? So in case of the second one, there is a doji and a spinning top, which again doesn't give any confirmation about the trade. Hence, he will also stay away from this. Now similar to a hammer, I have two pro tips for shooting star as well. Number one, shooting stars are most effective when formed at the top of a uptrend. It means that कि जब भी एक अपट्रेंड हो रहा हो और ऊपर एक शूटिंग स्टार बनता है, it means कि एक ट्रेंड रिवर्सल होने के चांसेस बहुत ज्यादा है. जो सेकंड प्रो टिप है वो ये है कि the longer is the upper shadow, the more bearish is the sentiment. So that's it for the video. I hope आपको पसंद आया होगा. अगर हाँ तो नीचे जाके लाइक बटन को एक बार प्रेस कर दीजिएगा. In the next video on technical analysis series हम ये देखेंगे कि how a combination of different candlesticks can form really strong trading patterns. अगर आपको दूसरा कुछ टॉपिक के बारे में जानने की इच्छा है तो कमेंट सेक्शन में मुझे जरूर बताइएगा. Till then, see you, take care and bye.